This is one of my favorite passages from The Princess Bride. If you remember, when we last left Westley and Buttercup, they had been visited by the Duke and Duchess at the Buttercup family farm. And so that is over, and we will take up sometime later. I couldn't see what he did that was so special, Buttercup's father said. He just fed them. This was after dinner now, and the family was alone again. By them, he means the cows. He fed the cows. They must like him personally. I had a cat once that only bloomed when I fed him. Maybe it's the same sort of thing, Buttercup's mother scraped the stew leavings into a bowl. Here, she said to her daughter, Westley's waiting by the back door. Take him his dinner. Buttercup carried the bowl, opened the back door. Take it, she said. He nodded, accepted, started off to his tree stump to eat. I didn't excuse you, farm boy, Buttercup began. He stopped, turned back to her. I don't like what you're doing with Horse. What you're not doing with Horse is more to the point. I want him cleaned, tonight. I want his hoofs varnished, tonight. I want his tail plaited and his ears massaged, this very evening. I want his stable spotless. Now I want him glistening, and if it takes you all night, it takes you all night. As you wish. She slammed the door and let him eat in darkness. I thought Horse had been looking very well, actually, her father said. Buttercup said nothing. You yourself said so yesterday, her mother reminded her. I must be overtired, Buttercup managed. The excitement and all. Rest then, her mother cautioned. Terrible things can happen when you're overtired. I was overtired the night your father proposed. Buttercup went to her room. She lay on her bed. She closed her eyes, and the Countess was staring at Westley. Buttercup got up from bed. She took off her clothes. She washed a little. She got into her nightgown, slipped between the sheets, snuggled down, closed her eyes. The Countess was still staring at Westley. Buttercup threw back the sheets, opened her door. She went to the sink by the stove and poured herself a cup of water. She drank it down. She poured another cup and rolled its coolness across her forehead. The feverish feeling was still there. How feverish? She felt fine. She was 17 and not even a cavity. She dumped the water firmly into the sink, turned, marched back to her room, shut the door, went back to bed. She closed her eyes. The Countess would not stop staring at Westley. Why? Why in the world would the woman in all the history of Florin, who was in all ways perfect, be interested in the farm boy? Buttercup rolled around in her bed, and there simply was no other way of explaining that look. She was interested. Buttercup shut her eyes tight and studied the memory of the Countess. Clearly, something about the farm boy interested her. Facts were facts, but what? The farm boy had eyes like the sea before a storm, but who cared about eyes? And he had pale blonde hair if you liked that sort of thing. And he was broad enough in the shoulders, but not all that much broader than the Count. And certainly he was muscular, but anyone would be muscular who slaved all day. And his skin was perfect and tan, but that came again from slaving in the sun all day. Who wouldn't be tan? And he wasn't that much taller than the Count either, although his stomach was flatter. But that was because the farm boy was younger. Buttercup sat up in bed. It must be his teeth. The farm boy did have good teeth, give credit where credit was due. White and perfect, particularly set against the suntanned face. Could it have been anything else? Buttercup concentrated. The girls in the village followed the farm boy around a lot whenever he was making deliveries. But they were idiots. They followed anything. And he always ignored them, because if he ever opened up his mouth, they would have realized that that was all he had, just good teeth. He was, after all, exceptionally stupid. It was really very strange that a woman as beautiful and slender and willowy and graceful, a creature as perfectly packaged and supremely dressed as the Countess, should be hung up on teeth that way. Buttercup shrugged. People were surprisingly complicated, but now she had it all diagnosed, deduced, clear. She closed her eyes and snuggled down and got nice and comfortable. And people don't look at other people the way the Countess looked at the farm boy because of their teeth. Oh, Buttercup gasped. Oh, dear. Now the farm boy was staring back at the Countess. He was feeding the cows, and his muscles were rippling the way they always did under his tanned skin, and Buttercup was standing there watching the farm boy, looking for the first time deep into the Countess's eyes. Buttercup jumped out of bed and began to pace her room. How could he? Oh, it was all right if he looked at her, but he wasn't looking at her. He was looking at her. She's so old, Buttercup muttered, starting to storm a bit now. The Countess would never see 30 again, and that was a fact. And her dress looked ridiculous out in the cowshed, and that was a fact, too. Buttercup fell onto her bed and clutched her pillow across her breasts. The dress was ridiculous before it even got to the cowshed. The Countess looked rotten the minute she left the carriage, with her too big painted mouth and her little piggy painted eyes and her powdered skin and flailing and thrashing. Buttercup wept and tossed and paced and wept some more, and there have been 3 great jealousies since David of Galilee was first afflicted with the emotion, when he could no longer stand the fact that his neighbor Saul's cactus outshone his own. Buttercup's case rated a close 4th on the all-time list. It was a very long and a very green night. She was outside his hovel before dawn. Inside, she could hear him already awake. She knocked. He appeared, stood in the doorway. Behind him, she could see a tiny candle, open books. He waited. She looked at him, then she looked away. He was too beautiful. I love you, Buttercup said. I know this must come as something of a surprise, since all I've ever done is scorn you and degrade you and taunt you. But I have loved you for several hours now, and every second more. I thought an hour ago that I loved you more than any woman has ever loved a man. But a half hour after that, I knew that what I felt before was nothing compared to what I felt then. But 10 minutes after that, I understood that my previous love was like a puddle compared to the high seas before a storm. Your eyes are like that, did you know? Well, they are. How many minutes ago was I? 20? Had I brought my feelings up to that point yet? It doesn't matter. Buttercup still could not look at him. The sun was rising behind her now. She could feel the heat on her back, and it gave her courage. I love you so much more now than 20 minutes ago that there cannot be a comparison. I love you so much more now than when you opened your hovel door. There cannot be a comparison. There is no room in my body for anything but you. My arms love you. My ears adore you. My knees shake with blind affection. My mind begs you to ask it something so it can obey. Do you want me to follow you for the rest of your days? I will do that. Do you want me to crawl? I will crawl. I will be quiet for you or sing for you. Or if you are hungry, let me bring you food. Or if you have thirst, and nothing will quench it but Arabian wine, I will go to Araby, and though it is across the world, I will bring back a bottle for your lunch. Anything there is that I can do for you, I will do for you. Anything there is that I cannot do, I will learn to do. I know I cannot compete with the Countess in skills or wisdom or appeal, and I saw the way she looked at you, and I saw the way you looked at her, but remember, please, that she is old and has other interests, while I am 17, and for me there is only you, dearest Westley. I've never called you that before, have I? Westley, 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 Westley. Darling Westley, adored Westley, sweet, perfect Westley. Whisper that I have a chance to win your love. And with that, she dared the bravest thing she had ever done. She looked right into his eyes. He closed the door in her face, without a word. Without a word.